Jensen exuded a chilling aura, and with just a few centimeters between them, Giselle was instantly sobered by the cold. Faced with the man's sinister gaze, she didn't know where to look. Suddenly, a bony finger pinched her chin, and Giselle was forced to look up, with a panicked expression. "Jensen, why did you come back?" "I came back because I wanted to." "Do I need to report to you?" Jensen knelt on the bed, ignoring Giselle's resistance and forcibly pressing down on her. His movements were rough, and he held Giselle's wrist without any tenderness. Feeling the woman in his arms go from relaxed to stiff, Giselle was in a panic. She was afraid of him like this, and the image of the gentle and refined Jensen in her memory was becoming increasingly blurred. "You make me sick. Both your face and your body disgust me." To him. Women like Giselle didn't deserve anything good, and it was unnecessary to treat them with patience. Giselle's body stiffened, and she bit her lip tightly. Her face, illuminated by the dim light, looked like a piece of paper, devoid of any color. She should have been used to Jensen's insults by now, but she didn't know why her heart still hurt so much, as if someone was slowly crushing it in their palm. Jensen rarely came back. He usually came back just to lie down and then leave. As if he was fulfilling his marital obligation to her. Today, Madeleine was injured, and he should have been in the hospital with his lover. But why did he appear in her bedroom in the middle of the night? After thinking for a moment, Giselle figured it out. He must have had a falling out with Madeleine, otherwise why would he come to her? But tonight, she really didn't have the energy to deal with him anymore. Giselle pushed against his solid chest, trying to escape. As soon as she stood up straight, her long hair was grabbed from behind. "Ah!" Giselle groaned in pain as she tilted her head back. "Jensen, it's already late today." She didn't know what she said wrong, but Jensen's face became even darker and more terrifying in the light and shadows. He forcefully pushed her face onto the pillow. "Don't play innocent with me. You threatened me to get married, and now you play around?" His words were too harsh. Giselle's breathing trembled, and she stared at the ceiling, tears rolling in her eyes. In the end, she couldn't hold back and soaked the pillow with her tears. This was the man she had always wanted to marry, and he used the most vicious words to hurt her all over. Jensen looked at her moist eyes, and his heart tightened. Irritated, he took off his tie and tightly held Giselle's hand. Giselle endured the pain caused by her rotting stomach. Her tongue pressed against her teeth. She suppressed her voice and tried hard to swallow the bloody taste in her throat, almost wishing for death from the excruciating pain. Jensen watched as the woman curled up in the bed, trembling slightly, and looked somewhat pitiful. He never cared for her, nor did he ever worry about her. She had always been healthy. It was common for her to work all night and still make it to work on time the next day. After being with her for so long, he had never seen her sick. Her long hair was messy on the bed. And her back was bony. When she curled her body, the two shoulder blades looked like butterflies about to spread their wings. He couldn't help but reach out to touch her. As his fingertips touched her, the woman recoiled as if startled. His eyes flashed with anger. Feeling extremely displeased, he suddenly felt a burst of restlessness, a strange and uncontrollable emotion he couldn't identify. He refused to admit that this emotion was caused by Giselle, so he thought about what Madeleine said to him at the hospital, asking him when he was going to divorce Giselle. His mood instantly plummeted. Jensen gritted his teeth. Was there anything about Giselle that was worth arguing with Madeleine over? Giselle hugged herself, like a turtle retreating into its shell, in a state of self-protection. She felt so cold. Although she had turned on the air conditioning and covered herself with a blanket, she still couldn't resist the cold. It seemed like a cut had been made in her chest, and the wound was infected, rotting her organs. She had always been able to endure pain. She could swallow broken teeth, but this time, she couldn't hold back the thought of divorce once it had taken root in her mind. When Giselle fainted from the pain, she heard Jensen say his last sentence. "If it weren't for the fact that I still need you. Do you think I would waste time on you?" When Giselle woke up, Jensen was long gone. She weakly sat up and the blanket slipped off her body, revealing the gruesome wound on her neck and shoulder. Giselle got out of bed and as soon as her feet touched the ground, her brain went blank and she briefly fell into darkness. In a daze, she stumbled into the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. This body was pitiful, and everyone who saw it felt sorry for her. Giselle felt sorry for herself too. Her heart, which was not a very big place, was full of Jensen. She had done everything to please him in these 4 years, and how she wished that any of the efforts she had made in the relationship to get repaid, but she was still unable to escape the harsh reality. She had to end this. She stood at the sink, brushing her teeth and washing her face before getting ready for the day. Her already sore throat had become increasingly painful after last night, and as she brushed her teeth, her throat triggered a stress response. Her body jerked, and she dry heaved, spitting out foamy toothpaste mixed with blood. Giselle was always adaptable, even to something as extreme as vomiting blood, which she now washed down the drain of the bathtub. By the time she finished, it was already 7:30 a.m., and she couldn't bring herself to eat anything. But considering the deformed state of her stomach, she still heated up a glass of milk and drank it. At the office, Giselle went through documents and examined Sherwood's profits over the past few months. The data showed a decline, and Giselle could already see Sherwood falling into decline. Giselle had known all along about Jensen's underhanded tactics in suppressing Sherwood. He would stop at nothing to seek revenge, and he had already managed to drag Sherwood, the top dog in Guper's business community, down in just a few short years. She would never be able to match his sharp tactics. After finishing a report, Giselle leaned back in her chair, sipping on the now cold coffee on her desk. The bitterness of the coffee slowly dissipated the sickly taste in her throat. She stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the towering skyscrapers. It was time to prepare for the future of the company. However, with no clear successor in mind, she wondered who would manage Sherwood after she died. Her father or brother? They were both the type of person who simply sat idle and eat, and would likely run the company into the ground within a few years. Giselle thought long and hard before realizing that the most suitable person to take over Sherwood was actually her legally bound husband, Jensen, who had always wanted Sherwood to go bankrupt. As she pondered, her mood became increasingly gloomy, and her eyes, staring out of the window, became deep and dark, like a drop of ink that could not be dispersed. She raised her left hand and pressed it against the cold glass window, tapping her fingers in a rhythmic pattern. The office was silent, and the tapping sound became particularly clear. Giselle rarely had moments of blank thought, but when she did, she liked to daydream, to forget, though briefly, the pain that reality brought her. The phone placed on Giselle's desk suddenly vibrated. Looking over, she saw the word "father" on the screen, even though it was 3 meters away.